Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the CD guy, Johnny Z here. Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel, and today it's time to review the new Dream Theater studio album, Parasomnia. First off, just some fast album facts. This is the 16th studio album released by the progressive metal legends Dream Theater, released today on February 7th, 2025 through Inside Out Music. It's the follow-up to A View from the Top of the World from 2021, and it's the first album to feature the original drummer Mike Portnoy since Black Clouds and Silver Linings from 2009. Personnel on this album, you have James LaBrie on lead vocals, John Petrucci on guitars and backing vocals, John Mayung on bass, Jordan Rudess on keyboards, and like I said, Mike Portnoy back behind the kit on the drums and backing vocals as well. Time for John's 5, my top 5 favorite songs from the new album. Coming in at number 1, I'm going to go with Dead Asleep. This is a song that does a killer job of capturing that old school Dream Theater magic, and as soon as I heard the main riff to this song, I was taken aback. It's one of the heaviest on the album, and the bridge is really memorable, as is the chorus. The riff around the 9-minute 20-second mark reminds me of something taken from Sacrifice Sons from Octavarium, and in addition to that, I think this whole track really gives off Beyond This Life vibes, which is really cool, and love the tone of this track. I think everyone gets a chance to shine here, especially Jordan Rudess with some absolutely incredible synth work. It's hands down my favorite song on the record. I think one of the best tracks they've written and released in over a decade, and this does not feel like an 11-minute track. This whole album in general flies by. It doesn't feel like a 77-minute album either, but this is a really gripping track, where time just flies by, and it once again totally dispels the whole Dream Theater or talented musicians who write really boring music logic, which I never understood, but I kind of wish they would have released this as a single. But I will say, I think the single tracks, the ones they put out in anticipation for this album, they do sound much better, and within the context of the record, with the continual theme of sleeping disorders, which, by the way, if you look up the real meaning behind this song, it's actually pretty wild. Number 2, let's go with Bend the Clock. I love a good Dream Theater ballad. Some of my favorite Dream Theater songs are ballads. It's one thing that they do really, really well. Well, they do everything really well, but they make some fantastic ballads, and this is another instant classic for me. It's a really powerful track, and some of the best melodies you'll hear on the entire record. This track is a great showcase for James LaBrie's voice. He's able to convey, so much emotion in his vocals, which really shine, I think, in this setting, and the ending solo by John Petrucci is breathtaking, with some new ideas here presented by JP, who just takes you on such a roller coaster with his playing, and this should absolutely be a live staple for the band going forward. I think Bend the Clock was placed perfectly on the album as well, kind of as, a palate cleanser before the big 20-minute closing epic. Speaking of, coming in at number 3, let's go with the big 20-minute closing epic. Let's go with the Shadow Man Incident. It wouldn't be a Dream Theater album without the hallmark closing epic track here, and, just like with all the other epics in their catalog, you just have to sit back, close your eyes, and take it all in, let the band take you on a journey with them, and that's exactly what they did once again, and there's a lot to love on this track. The band were able to cover a ton of ground in 20 minutes, and I love that the band aren't just going through the motions and not following any of the same structures they've used before for this track, and I will say, it definitely does not feel like a 20-minute song, and I mean that in a good way. It's just so easy to get lost in the instrumental sections of this song, and, you have Petrucci on a 7-string harmonizing so effortlessly with Jordan Rudess for a really cool dual solo, and James shows great vocal control here, and his delivery of some pretty haunting lyrics, right? You have that classic Mike Portnoy drum fills here that we've really been missing on those Dream Theater albums, and the more recent Dream Theater epics have been really well done, don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the title track to A View from the Top of the World and Illumination Theory, but the last thing you want is for the big epic album closer thing to become forced, and I think Dream Theater managed to avoid that here, and even write a song I think stands up to some of their older, more classic epics as well. Following that up here with number 4, I'm going to go with Midnight Messiah. I don't know if I'm the only one who kind of felt like the playing on this track was kind of groovy, but all the hallmarks of Dream Theater are on display here, and I think probably this is the most commercially accessible track on the record, especially of the 3 singles that were released, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. This track is a total earworm, and this was the 3rd single released for the album, and definitely got me more excited and optimistic for the record after I kind of felt a little bit indifferent to A Broken Man. But this track has some of my favorite lyrics on the album, and I really love some of the references to past Dream Theater tracks in the verses, and I probably don't even need to say it at this point, but yes, of course, the solo here from John Petrucci is great as well. Rounding out my top 5 here, I'm going to go with Night Terror. It made a lot of sense that this was the lead single released in anticipation for the album, since it really felt like the band picked up where they left off with Mike Portnoy on Black Clouds and Silver Linings. This could have easily been a track from that album. I really love the solos on here by Jordan Rudess and Petrucci, and the chorus is very melodic as well. I think this works really well as a lead single, and the opening instrumental, In the Arms of Morpheus, bleeds into it seamlessly, so great stuff here to start the album with In the Arms of Morpheus, and then right into Night Terror. Killer lead single, had to put it in my top 5, rounding out John's 5. All in all, I'm going to give this album 8 out of 10 stars. It's the band's best album since Portnoy left, and, I just want to say, I'm a fan of the Mike Mangini era. I think he did a fantastic job with the band in what was, a really tough position. He had a very hard role to fill, but Mike Portnoy's absence, was definitely felt, not just behind the kit, but also from a songwriting standpoint, and I would say from a production standpoint. But interestingly enough, this is the first album to feature Portnoy where he doesn't receive a co-producer's credit, which I thought was odd, but baby steps, I guess, right? But otherwise, I can definitely hear the band drawing inspiration from past records with Portnoy here, like Black Clouds and Silver Linings, and 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence specifically, and the band sound pretty rejuvenated as well, playing with Portnoy once again. You have the playing of Petrucci, Rudess, and Mayang as cohesive as ever, right? And James LaBrie has been struggling a bit with his voice on the recent tour, but he sounds really good on this album, and it definitely brings you all the hallmarks of classic Dream Theater, and it's great to see Mike back with the guys, of course. They didn't exactly reinvent the wheel on this album, right? But it's pretty much what you'd expect from Dream Theater. Excellent musicians who write complex and, exciting, compelling music together with really interesting rhythmic passages, lots of twists and turns, things of that nature. And I had high expectations for this album going in, but that's just a standard that, I set them to because they're such great musicians. And seeing that it was the return of Mike Portnoy, I was hoping they could find some of that old magic again. And I'd say for the most part, my expectations were met. Excellent solos, complex instrumentation on here, interesting thematic elements carrying over throughout the album. Great stuff. Happy 40th to Dream Theater. This is definitely the best they've sounded in 15 years. So that wraps up this review here of the new Dream Theater studio album, Parasomnia. I just wanted to share my thoughts real quick. I was hoping my copy would come in the mail early. Like, I saw a lot of people getting their copies early, but unfortunately it didn't. Mine's coming today, but I've been listening on Spotify since it dropped last night, and wanted to share my preliminary thoughts on the new album here. Really solid stuff. Like I said, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. Great to have Mike Portnoy back in the band, really rejuvenating the entire group, and so I think it's great, and I'm very excited to see them live on this tour as well. Going to be great stuff, and I've seen some of the clips live from the 40th anniversary tour. The band sound great. James LaBrie's vocals, they are what they are, but I think he still sounds good, all things considered. So really solid stuff here, and there's a lot to be excited about if you're a fan of Dream Theater right now. So yeah, just wanted to share my thoughts on Parasomnia here, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below, turn on the bell for notifications so you don't miss a new upload, and let me know down in the comment section below, what are your thoughts on Parasomnia? Is this the best Dream Theater album in 15 years? I want to hear from you, so please let me know all that good stuff down in the comment section below, and until next time, it's the CD guy, Johnny Z, signing off. Take care, everybody.